Well, I always sort of knew that if the Tigers were ever in a situation where, something maybe like what happened yesterday came about, that I might get a phone call. So I've always kind of had that in the back of my mind. But never know when that day's coming. So I had just finished a workout and I was taking care of our 8-month-old daughter, and phone rang. And first thought was, it's a little unusual for them to be calling me on a Sunday at 11 a.m. Well, but I was in the middle of taking care of our daughter, and so just didn't have the chance to take the call. So I ended up going to voicemail. And so immediately got a text that said, hey, can you call me as soon as possible? So at that point, then that's kind of my dog whistle. That was kind of my moment where I said, oh, maybe is this it? This isn't it. Kind of like trying to talk myself out of it. And so anyways, then I just said, sure, can I call you in 5 minutes? And the response I got back was, here's the situation we're in. I need to know if you can cover today's game on radio. And I can confidently tell you, it did not take 5 minutes for me to make that return phone call.
I bet. So they tell you, here's the situation, and you just had to get in your car. Where were you?
I was at my house in Grand Rapids. So obviously that's a drive across the state. We were about 4.5 hours away from first pitch. And my wife, who is an emergency room physician assistant, so she's been dealing with COVID for a year over at the hospital, she was working. So had to coordinate childcare on the fly. So shout out to our babysitter. You're the real MVP. And so we ended up making it work. But I think I pulled up to Comerica Park about maybe a little over 90 minutes before first pitch. I just had just enough to write out a lineup card and go. So it was unusual from the respect of there was no prep time. I didn't have a chance to do all the research I wanted to do. But the good news was I had been prepping for what happened on Sunday for 20 years. So I was ready for that, even if I hadn't done an ounce of homework for that particular game.
So I was thinking about this. If I knew in 3 days that I was going to have to call the game, I'd be nervous all the way up until game time. But you didn't really have time to get nervous about this, did you?
Not in the slightest. It was more exciting than anything else. I don't think I was worried about it. I think I was just so happy for, and not just for myself, but just so happy for people who had invested so much time, energy, resources into getting me into a spot where I could get a phone call like that. It weirdly felt like it wasn't about me. I was so excited to share it with my wife. I was so excited to share it with my folks, the guy who was the best man at my wedding, my boss in West Michigan. It was those phone calls that really were some of the greatest payoffs on the way to Comerica Park that day.
How many phone calls did you make between Grand Rapids, phone call / text did you make between Grand Rapids and Detroit to get people like, hey, pay attention tonight?
Well, I made a couple. I definitely didn't get a chance to reach out to as many people as I would have liked to, because there have been a lot of people that had a hand in getting me to a point where I could do what happened on Sunday. But I had to make sure to check the boxes, so I made sure nobody be mad at me if I didn't reach out to them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you're winning an award, if you're in an acceptance speech, like, you better thank your wife, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
So I made sure to call and to reach out to a couple people. But, of course, as the game got close and then word went out on social media, things got very busy. And I learned that there's a button on your phone that actually is called Do Not Disturb, which I wish I would have thought about before the second inning, because I certainly needed. It was my watch kept on vibrating the whole first inning, but I was so excited to do it. And, just having thought about that opportunity for such a long time. And again, nothing is ever guaranteed. So to actually have been able to stand back and say, even though I hadn't called baseball on the radio in 2 years, because the last time the West Michigan Whitecaps played was 2019.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that there were monitors that we were calling the game off of, and regardless of the fact that there was zero prep time, at least for that particular game, it was everything I could have ever wanted that experience to be.
That's awesome, man. I can't imagine. So what's the reaction been? So you got a bunch of, one question I was going to ask you was, did your phone blow up during the game? Which it sounds like it did. And then what was the reaction afterwards? Your reaction, and then from, people and family and stuff.
I would say my personal reaction was, given the circumstances of what came about on Sunday, I was very happy with how things turned out. From a standpoint of other people, I have had little opportunity to get back to everybody that I wanted to, but I have been able to read messages, and there have been some that have had me tearing up like a baby. So I mean, it's been a very special day, and it's people that I haven't heard from in years reaching out. So to understand how wide sweeping this was very special, something that I'll always remember.
And for those of you who may not, or for those of people watching who may not know you, I mean, you're a Michigan kid, right? You're a Detroit kid. Your family's all here. It wasn't like your first MLB game was, for Arizona or something.
Sterling Heights, that's where I grew up. I went to Sterling Heights, Stevenson, then went to Central Michigan University, spent a little bit of time in North Carolina. Then at 97 won the ticket, the flagship station for the Tigers. But the goal was always to do what happened on Sunday and hopefully beyond. But it was very difficult at 97-1 because the thing that you need to do play-by-play is reps, is opportunity, is more play-by-play. And I didn't have it. So when the West Michigan Whitecaps opportunity came along, I had to make a really hard choice. And that was, in a sense, having to bet on yourself, because you knew what you wanted to do. You knew what you had to do. And it was something that was going to be very uncomfortable, leaving Detroit to go to Grand Rapids. But, Sunday felt like a real validation of that.